live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a beautiful Sunday night as we speak, 10 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m. Down in Kampala, Uganda. So as we speak, Barcelona are 2 goals in the lead against Getafe by 2 goals. Those goals scored by Ferran Torres Garcia. Both goals, scored by the player in the 15th minute and in the 34th minute. Barcelona continue to dominate the affairs, but Getafe, just a couple of minutes ago, missed, a golden opportunity to pull one back. We'll be reviewing, the Premier League weekend, but predominantly that game between Manchester City and Arsenal. Following that disappointing result, depending on which way or which side you may slice it. But anyways, before we do proceed any further, allow me have our audios tested and make sure everything checks out before we even proceed any further for purposes of this broadcast. Anyways, I think we're good to go. I think we are good to go. So we'll be discussing Bernardo Silva taking a dig at Arsenal, prior to today's game. And, Rodri failed to get the perfect revenge that he had sought for in going to the Emirates. But I think Manchester City will be the happier side following today's results. So, yeah, beautiful game of football. Not the best, not the most entertaining game of football that you will ever want to watch. It was by far not anything other than that. But yeah, that's the nature of football. 2 big sides, one being overly conservative, one traditionally conservative, while the other having to become conservative to try and secure a result. That's the way I saw it. And I hope maybe, and again, I'll be giving you all my thoughts. As soon as I saw those starting 11s come out, I almost instantaneously changed my own prediction, because for those of you that do follow this channel as much as the person broadcasting it, was that my prediction was a 2-1 victory for the Gunners, and yet to the contrary, it never materialized. It was a 2-1 victory, but it never materialized. But anyways, Super Sunday has had only draws. In the early kickoff, in the 2 early year games, Newcastle shared the spoils in a goalless draw with AFC Bournemouth, while a 10-man Sunderland held out against Aston Villa to a 1-1 draw. Aston Villa not doing themselves any favors, because a 33rd minute straight red card to Ronaldo was enough. He put the home side to a disadvantage, and yet somehow they managed to force Aston Villa into a 1-1 draw. Aston Villa having arguably one of their worst starts to a Premier League campaign, as far as I can remember. Nonetheless, the point has lifted them from 19th to just 18th. They are still in the relegation zone. Things are not really happening for manager Unai Emery. And yet, when you look on paper, there's nothing hard. There's nothing. You sort of look at their team, and there's nothing really there to say that they're incapable of winning games. When you have a player like Tyrone Mings, Enzri Konsa, who starts at the England national team, Boubacar Kamara, John McGinn, the captain, Lucas Digne, Matty Cash. I mean, that's a Emi Buendia. Now, Emi Buendia may be not the best of players. Morgan Rogers, Ivan Guessand. This one was a signing from, I think, was it Stedrens in the summer? And then Oli Watkins. That's a team that should be going to Sunderland and pick for you 3 points. Not that Sunderland is an easy place to go or an easy team to beat up against, but if you cannot beat up against those teams, then you're going to have it you're going to find it very, very hard, to win a game of football in as far as the Premier League is concerned. Anyways, all that notwithstanding, we quickly moved on to the biggest game, arguably the biggest game of the weekend between Manchester City and Arsenal. Now the game ended in a 1-all draw, but as soon as I saw that starting 11 from Arsenal, I quickly changed my prediction. Instinctively, I could not see how Arsenal are going to win the game with that kind of conservative midfield. I'm not sure I've seen a more conservative manager ever since Jose Mourinho in his first spell at Chelsea, ever since traditional Diego Costa. Sorry, not Diego Costa. Um, the Atletico Madrid manager. The Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid boss. Diego Simeone. I do not think we're talking about the Diego Simeone of 2012, 2013, up to like 2018, 2020. I've not seen a more conservative manager. I do not think I've seen a more conservative manager than Mikel Arteta since Tony Pulis. I mean, you cannot go into a home game against a team like Manchester City, who are not in their best of form, who are not having the best of moments, and you're having to play all three conservative, midfielders. Hi, Pedri, how are you doing? I'm sure you are following the game. You're watching the game between Barcelona and Getafe. Arteta legit started 3 defensive midfielders. Defensive minds Lolo. Yes, indeed. I mean, that's for me. That's my pain point. Starting that kind of, even starting it at Anfield was a problem in itself. Yes, even starting it at Anfield was a problem. Yep, it's 2-0 right now. Yeah, I'm also following the game. Beautiful game that you guys are playing there. So, I mean, well, you would sort of understand, and I want to be on his side, because when you're playing away to Anfield, it's understandable that you may want that bit of reservation. You do not just want to open yourself up. I sort of understand that, even though I do not agree with it. So, but at home against Manchester City, a team that has Rodri, Bernardo Silva, and Jan Reinders, who we all know are very, very good attacking midfielders, and then you play a conservative game. I mean, what on God's green earth is that? Arsenal not going to win silverware with that kind of mentality, with that kind of attitude. We're not talking about a cup competition where it's a one-off and you sort of want to grind out a result and go to the next stage and go to the next level. It's not a semi-final. It's not a final. You're not looking for that one-off kind and move on and to the next stage of the competition. No, we are talking about a league of 38 games where at the end of the day, the more points you amass, it's what wins you the Premier League title. Basically that, but it was not that. There's nothing he did today in the opening 45 minutes that showed he wanted to win that game. Nothing. Because, let's be honest, Zubimendi, defensive midfielder. Declan Rice, by design, naturally, is a defensive midfielder. While they can interswitch, one goes into, being the 8 and whatever defensive. Mikel Merino, I mean, one of the slowest midfielders you'll find in the Premier League, if not in the modern game today. He's slow. He lacks pace. He's not. He's not like he's a good dribbler. He's not a good and quick passer of the ball. So, getting us the team like Manchester City, who are very good at the counter press, who have played this kind of system longer than you have. I mean, there's no way you're going to beat them with that, with the slowness of Mikel Merino. And he actually did he gave himself a vote of no confidence by halftime. He gave himself a vote of no confidence by halftime. Those 2 substitutions that he made, particularly that of withdrawing Mikel Merino for Ebeleche Eze in the attacking midfield wall, and then of course withdrawing Noni Madueke to pave way for Bukayo Saka, that was the biggest referendum that he can do on himself. That was a vote of no confidence in himself, in my opinion. Now, the one of Noni Madueke, Bukayo Saka, that I understand. Bukayo Saka was coming up, returning from, we know from a hamstring injury, you do not want to risk that much. Noni Madueke is capable of, delivering in certain moments. He did not have the best of games. Really, not that Arsenal are having the best of moments. I know that the illusion of a dominating possession might have convinced, some Arsenal fans or Arsenal to think that that they were having a good game. Yet in actual sense, they weren't, because it took, I don't know how many minutes before Arsenal could even have an attempt on goal. More than that, actually, I think more than 40 minutes before Arsenal had a shot on goal. That's how long it took. That's how poor they had been. They controlled the ball. They had majority of the ball, but did nothing with it. Manchester City, with less of the ball, before halftime, had already had 2 attempts on goal, one being a goal in itself, scored through brought Erling Haaland, while the other, Raya served. So the team was just ineffective going forward because of that conservative midfield. Then you look at the attacking line. Oh, again, I've said this before. There's no way Victor Gyökeres is going to thrive when you have slow players in midfield. Because if your attacking midfielder or your supposed creative midfielder is as slow as Mikel Merino is, it is Victor Gyökeres that is going to suffer. Because the ball is not going to get released quicker to him. The ball is not going to get released to the wingers quicker to them for them to create that sort of run for Victor Gyökeres. It's not going to happen for him. It's not going to happen for your wingers. And part of the reason as to why Noni Madueke was struggling and subsequently Leandro Trossard is you could see in moments Noni Madueke receives the ball down the right flank, and then he faces up to his immediate side to see if Mikel Merino has pulled into that sort of middle third space that exists between the winger and the left back on the other side, and it was he wasn't there. Oftentimes he was not in that position. And then we know, because we were playing in a conservative manner, rarely did Urian Timber do the overlap. He wasn't doing it. So it wasn't helping Noni Madueke, It wasn't helping him one bit. And Arsenal were less effective. The reverse was true on the other side. Never mind that they did not often turn to the attention to the right, to the left wing, as they often do, I mean, they never use that wing. Basically, it's more like I don't want to even think it's a decoy, because it cannot be a decoy when you're not even using it. That's how predominantly they rely on the right wing of their play, and it was the same story today. But they could hardly progress that ball throughout the middle, throughout the spine. That was in the middle. Victor Gyökeres was struggling to get on the ball. In the moments when he got to the ball, he sort of did his role fairly well in terms of the hold-up play, but Manchester City knew how to go about him. So Arsenal's domination on the ball in the first half was predominantly in their half. And then once they crossed the center line, it felt like they were, devoid of ideas going forward. So very, very poor game, in my opinion. But again, it was about Erling Haaland in the 9th minute, breaking that ice. January Enders providing the assist. And I did, say this in the preview. If they allowed January Enders that amount of space, he's going to hurt them. He's very, very good going forward, And when you look at that moment, Gabriel Magalhaes, you're slow-paced. You're supposed to be man-marking Brad Erling Haaland. What on God's green earth are you doing so far deep in the opponent's half, And then you literally run back and you literally jaywalking, snail running, trying to catch up with, Brad Erling Haaland. William Saliba had a lapse in judgment. Now, January Enders is driving with the ball towards William Saliba and Urian Timber. Then William Saliba decides to let, Brad Erling Haaland run scot-free in space. And that's where January Enders finds him for him to score past, David Raya. And I'm thinking to myself, Saliba, why not? The moment he reaches the 18 yards box, he should be splitting to go and, cut out that route of brought Erling Haaland. Now, as unfair it may sound, let Julian Timber deal with Tijani Reinders. He's capable of doing so, but they narrowed that space and then created the gap on the other side. They narrowed the spine here in the middle because they were closer to each other, then gave Tijani Reinders basically the choice, an easy choice to play to guard Erling Haaland. So, but a very, very poor, sort of way of defending in that moment. Then, like I said, Manchester City were simply doing the basics. They knew they had to defend well. In fact, I think this is it is the lowest that Manchester City have had of a ball possession since Pep Guardiola took over. Manchester City, they had a shy 33% on ball possession compared to Arsenal 67%. That's according to multiple online statistics sources. Some may suggest that it was 30, but it is what it is. The point is that Arsenal were dominant on the ball, but dominant on the ball, doing with the ball what? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Especially in that first half. It took until the second half for them to try and tried to do something, but even in the second half, you never felt that Arsenal played under any form of urgency. And I can only blame that on Mikel Arteta. It took donkey's years for him to bring on Ethan Manieri. It took him donkey's years to bring on Gabriel Martinelli. And I was thinking to myself, you need fresh legs. You need fresh legs. Yes, you brought in Bukayo Saka and Ebeleche Eze, but things have not happened for them. You now need to bring on fresh legs by the 70th minute to try and run at this Manchester City side. Now, because they move the ball so slowly, literally at snail's pace, it gave Manchester City almost always the time to regroup, And you can see where the equalizer comes from. That ball looped over, floated in by Ebeleche Eze. They do quick play, and he, heads up, sees Martinelli ready to make the run, floats in the ball, times it really, really well. Gianluigi Donnarumma caught in no man's land, and the ball is chipped over him and it hits the back of the net. I mean, Gabriel Martinelli is the one that scored against Manchester City last season in their 1-0 victory against the same side at the Emirates Stadium. So not last season. That was last season, but what? Yes, 2023, 2024. So, but even when he made those changes in the second half, at the start of the second half, withdrawing Mikel Merino, yes, they did improve in terms of how they carried the ball. It added a bit of pace, but predominantly they were playing with a conservative mind, with the handbrake on. It's almost like they felt Arsenal played as though they were the ones with the 1-0 lead. They did not play with the urgency of trying to find an equalizer. Then when it came to their set-piece play, they had as many as 11 corner kicks compared to, I think, Manchester City's 1. Now, they were doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Floating in that ball, they knew there was a towering Gianluigi Donnarumma in goal, who was literally getting his hand on every ball that they tried to float in, and they still did the same thing. They could not try and change concept, They could not, I do not know, Nicolas Jova, maybe he slept on the job on this one. He could not give his team alternative ideas, maybe try to go short, and maybe try to go short, try and pass, maybe try and create something from outside the area, go from long distance and something like that. But every ball they floated in, literally, Gianluigi Donnarumma was at the end of it, putting his palm to it, putting his fist to it, and it just never paid off, Again, when you look at the statistics, they will tell you that while Arsenal dominated the game in terms of ball possession, they only had a mere 3 shots on target, just as many as Manchester City were able to get, thanks to David Raya making the 2 brilliant saves. By the way, Arsenal should have lost that game, even when they were dominating the game. Shots of target were 6 compared to 2. Again, that's in a way misleading. I would want to think, they never looked threatening every time they went into that final third. They never looked threatening. And so, like I said, the second half substitutions are for withdrawing Mikel Merino and bringing on Ebeleche Eze and then Noni Madueke. But particularly that substitution of that substitution of Mikel Merino being withdrawn for Ebeleche that's an indictment on Mikel Arteta. That's a referendum on himself. That's a vote of no confidence in his abilities. Why are you being that conservative? It's not an away game. Begin with your best team. Go and find the goal and then defend. Now, of course, we can scream at Mikel Arteta all day, but then Pep Guardiola came with some dark acts of his own. Wow, what a brilliant save! Marcus Rashford forcing the Getafe goalkeeper into a brilliant save here. I mean, what a save that was! Really, is it Rashford? Stand to be corrected. I know. Thingy was withdrawn. I know. Yes, it was Marcus Rashford. So I was saying. Meanwhile, Barcelona are leading by 3-0. The third goal was scored by Dani Olmo in the 63rd minute. For those of you that are following the conversation and the game, now Pep Guardiola started with pretty much an expected team: Joshko Badiol, Ruben Diaz, I think Rico Ruiz, and Kushanov, Gianluigi Donnarumma, Tijan Riendas, Rodrigo Cascante, and then Tijan Rien and Bernardo Silva, the captain, of course. Up front, you had Jeremy Doku, you had Bart Erling Haaland, and Phil Foden. Now, I do not know, for some reason, they just chose to sit back for majority of the game. Man City sat back for majority of the game. Even when you look at their substitutions, the substitutions that Pep Guardiola did, of course, at the start of the second half, he brought on Matas Nunes for Kushanov because Kushanov seemed to have suffered a knock. And then in the 68th minute, he withdrew Phil Foden for a defender, Nathan Ake. Then he withdrew in the 76th minute, brought Erling Haaland for Nico Gonzalez, a holding midfielder. Then he withdrew in the 87th minute, John Stones for Nico O'Reilly. I mean, what sort of message was he sending? Actually, it wasn't Rico. It was Nick O'Reilly that started at a left back. So then he later on withdrew Jeremy Doku in the 87th minute for Savinho. Now that was the only positive substitution that he made. And I'm there thinking to myself, Pep Guardiola, yes, I know you want the 3 points. You want to secure this 1-0 victory. But he knows one too well that the best way of defending is by attacking. In any case, last season's 2-2 draw between a 10-man Arsenal and his side should have been evidence of that. But Arsenal chose to sit back and defended with their lives. And at the end of the day, still Manchester City managed to penetrate them to restore parity for that game to end in a 2-2 draw. He must be knowing that. I mean, we do not need to be telling Pep Guardiola how to tactically set up a team, how to say, I mean, you withdraw actually your best player in Bart Erling Haaland, who's causing all sorts of trouble between Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes because he was going toe-to-toe with them physically. I loved his hold-up play. We know he's the kind of striker or the kind of player that doesn't need to have so many touches on the game for him to score. I remember a moment in the second half, in the first half when they brought his statistics and he only had 6 touches on the ball, but one of those was already a goal. So, but I thought he competed really, really well. He managed to continuously run in between the two defenders, but every time they passed him the ball, he managed to shoot for that ball, to wait for a teammate to hold up the play and, let play on a little bit. He knew when it came to backing up into Saliba or Gabriel Magalhaes, I thought he did that really well. And for as long as he remained on the pitch, he retained that goal threat, and Arsenal are going to constantly be alive to it. But he withdrew him for Nico Gonzalez, which I thought was a little too high. Then the withdrawal of Phil Foden for Nathan. I mean, again, why not bring on Savinho to sort of bring that best threat to that win. All the tactics were questionable. All the tactics from Pep Guardiola were questionable. He literally packed the bus. Now, Arsenal fans can want all they want that Pep Guardiola packed the bus. The mere fact that that you still couldn't beat Manchester City, that's another indictment on your title credentials. Particularly not as a team, but the manager. That's all for Mikel Arteta. But anyways, at the end of the day, they managed to deny Rodri the revenge he had sought coming into this game because they did an interview, Rodrigo Cascante and Bernardo Silva, in which they said they wanted revenge. Well, Bernardo Silva did not want to use the word revenge, but they knew they wanted to compete better. And Pep Guardiola did say that Arsenal were the better team, but at least Manchester City got the result they deserved or they wanted, which was better than they did last season. Last season, they went there and lost by 5-1. So Pep Guardiola came with that sort of timidness and knowing that last season they lost there by 5-1. The last thing they would have wanted was concede 3 on the same turf. So he set up his team in such a manner that they were going to be as conservative as possible, and they managed to do that. But again, they were able to effectively do that because his apprentice in Mikel Arteta made that easy for them. He made that really, really easy for them by setting up that kind of, very, very conservative midfield. I mean, it sort of burns my head, and knowing that you have Bukayo Saka on the bench, you have Ethan Nwaneri, you have Ebeleche Izel, all who you can play as your 10s or attacking midfielders. Now, people are going to jump on this and say, but Bukayo Saka is a winger. No, he can't play in that role. Tell him, go and play in that role, he will play. That's the kind of player I've seen Bukayo Saka. It doesn't matter where you tell him to go play left back, he will play that. Tell him to play left wing, he will play that. Tell him to go to the. In fact, as the game wore on, you could see he had, many moments he was moving down to the left wing. Okay, he's the sort of player that plays based on responsibility that has been assigned to him. And so Mikel Arteta thinking, I'll just go with my Mikel Merino. I do not want to think at some point that he's really, really obsessed with the abilities of Mikel Merino. Now, I have nothing against Mikel Merino. I know when it comes to putting that ball in the back of the net, I think he's one of the most effective players Arsenal have. But when it comes to playing as a midfielder, he's shambolic. He's slow. He's conservative in his play. He can't give you that brilliant through pass. When it comes, it rarely comes. He can't run, as in go on a sprint. In the air, he's not the very best that he is. He's not the best passer of the ball. So you wonder sometimes what he brings to that team, particularly when he's played in the midfield. And you can't really quite point a finger to it. Maybe the data shows otherwise to Mikel Arteta. But based on what we see with our eyes, based on what I see with my eyes, it's not happening. It's not clicking for him. So, anyways, Bernardo Silva was speaking prior, like I said in that interview, and he did say that he was asked who their biggest rivals are in the Premier League, and he did say that our biggest rival by far is Liverpool, because those are the guys that always competed with us for titles, and they also managed to win titles. Then you definitely see a team like Arsenal over the years getting better and better and being able to start fighting for those titles, even though they haven't yet reached that level of achieving it. I mean, and now, while Arsenal fans may have sat there thinking was taking a dig at them, it's their honest opinion. Liverpool competed with them. They won the league title in 2019-2020. They won the Champions League title in 2019. Last season, they won the Premier League title. So it is what it is. Arsenal have competed with Manchester City for the previous 2 seasons before the last. And they didn't win it. So there's no time that Arsenal beaten Manchester City to a title, while Liverpool have done it before. So and then when what's his name? When Ebeleche is a plays that ball and Gabriel Martinelli goes on to score to rescue Arsenal, which is done the second time in a space of just days. And I remember during the course of the summer when we were discussing the possibility of Arsenal letting go of Gabriel Martinelli, I was one of those hammering the table to say, do not let go of Gabriel Martinelli. He may not be in the best of form right now, but he is arguably one of the best players that you have. You go back to that season of 2022-2023, and he went toe-to-toe with the Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard among the best performers of the season, that season. But all that notwithstanding, I was wondering, why would you let go of a 24-year-old and keep a 30-year-old in Leandro Trossard? So my opinion was, if you had to let go of one of the two, it had to be Leandro Trossard. Now, again, I was not an advocate that one must be let go of, but I said if it did necessitate that one has to be let go, it had to be Leandro Trossard. Now, I know Leandro Trossard can equally be very, very effective, especially coming off the bench. I think he's a better player coming off the bench for some reason. He should be Arsenal's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. That's how they should deploy him. But every time he starts a game, sometimes he does not give you the kind of performance that you expect, that you'd hope he would give you. And again, many Arsenal fans were wondering, why have you dropped Ebeleche Eze just because he did not have the best of games in Bilbao, and gone with Leandro Trossard, who just because he came off the bench and squad? Now, that's a bit subjective. Again, maybe he looked sharper in training that he went with him, or he thought he could create certain things with him, but it just did not happen. So there it is. I've already seen apologies starting to flow in for Gabriel Martinelli, for the Arsenal fans that were calling for his head on the spike, that wanted him to be sold, to leave the team. Yes, he has his inefficiencies, but I think he's a very, very good player. And I do not know why Mikel Arteta has not explored playing Gabriel Martinelli more centrally, as opposed to sticking with him being on the wing. I mean, he could be a substitute for Victor Gyökeres. He could play in that sort of role. So, anyways, plenty of reaction following that game. A reporter did ask Mikel Arteta, can you talk us through your thinking behind the midfield three? And Mikel Arteta said, no, we do not have time for that. There is a lot of things to that. Nobody asked me about the midfield three in Bilbao. Nobody, yeah. I mean, it's becoming nonsensical, because every time he sort of wins, no matter how he wins, he feels it's a justification for the kind of midfield that he starts without an attacking, a midfielder. And unfortunately for him, he lost at Anfield, so he could not defend that. But it's just poor. It's just poor. It was just poor. It was just poor. It was just poor. Anyways, what must I say? What more can I add to that? I mean, if you're an Arsenal fan, it's going to be a long season for you. Not because you're going to lose too many games, but because you're going to go wary over Mikel Arteta's tactics. Because if they continue on that trajectory with that kind of mentality, that in every big game they ought to be conservative, every time they do not have Martin Odegaard, because this is what happens. Every time he doesn't have Martin Odegaard, he thinks Ethan Nwaneri should not start. Now, I can defend him slightly on Ethan Nwaneri, because he is not a good chaser of the ball. He's not, when it comes to his counter press, he's not very good at that. But teams play with that. They play knowing that we have a weak link in the team when it comes to a counter press. The same way you would play with a back four knowing that your left back is not that good, and then you need your left-sided centre back to constantly provide cover, or your left-sided midfielder to constantly provide cover. You can play a game knowing that. Look at Haaland. Man City play with him. They know he's not very good with the counter press. Look at Liverpool. It's actually a command that Mo Salah is involvement in the counter press is, constantly limited. They play no with that. So it cannot be the justification why Mikel Arteta is not playing Ethan Nwaneri as his attacking midfielder every time he doesn't have Martin Odegaard. He needs to trust him. 10 out of 10, he's better than Mikel Merino as an attacking midfielder, because he has the ability to dribble past a player or two. He has the ability to release the ball quicker. He has the ability to increase the tempo of the game in terms of running with the ball carries, and all those kinds of things. But he's the manager at the end of the day. Sometimes I give them the benefit of the doubt that they have access to more data and justifications than we do. But those, like I keep saying, those second half substitutions just proved us right that they just proved us right that they just proved us right that the manager was wrong in how he started. Then also. Arsenal, you score a late equalizer in added time, and you run into wild celebrations in a home game. I'm not saying do not celebrate the goal. Celebrate the goal by picking that ball out from the back of the net and taking it to the center line, showing that there's an urgency that you want another goal to win this game. But Martinelli goes misliding on the other side. David Raya is running to Ebeleche Eze to thank him for that incredible pass. That's all okay. But I'm saying Gabriel Martinelli, Bukayo Saka should be dragging his ass back, with the ball, put it on the center line. Because we know Manchester City had what? We're playing a 9-1 kind of system. They're leaving Jeremy Doku before he was being withdrawn off to be the man that remains at the center of everything to wait for that ball for Manchester City, so that when they go into attack, then they have a channel to play into. And Jeremy Doku, I thought, did a good job. He caused Arsenal a bit of trouble. It almost felt like if Urian Timber was left on that pitch soon rather than later, maybe you could have considered a second yellow card and be sent off. So, but everything for the dropped points, Arsenal fans blame it on Mikel Arteta. Where I was watching the game from, as soon as that starting 11 came up, henceforth, Arsenal fans, they quickly pointed it out. What kind of midfield is that? Even online, it was the same story. It was the same story. As soon as Arsenal fans saw that, they were like, we are done, we are cooked, we are finished. There's no way we are winning this game with that kind of midfield. Why is it that thousands of fans can see that, but then suddenly the manager is this? I don't want to say beyond a reasonable doubt that it's not going to happen that way. Why is he convinced that it is not going to happen that way? Anyways, guys, let's follow up on the rest of this game between Barcelona and Getafe as Barcelona continue to lead by 3-0. Goals scored by Dani Olmo and a brace from Ferran Torres as we speak. So, meanwhile, there's a game I'd hope to watch in the French League One between, but it did not happen. The game between Paris Saint-Germain and Olympique Marseille. I don't know what happened. Earlier on today, I did watch the Roma derby as Lazio beat up against as Roma beat up against Lazio by 0-0. That goal scored by the captain, Lorenzo Pellegrini. I mean, his come of age, I think he's one of those players that has not lived to his full potential, even though he's the AC Roma captain. I remember watching him a couple of years ago when he was still pretty much a youngster, or in his early 20s, when he was playing with Nicolo Zaniolo And I was thinking to myself, what a brilliant pair of players AC Roma have on their hands. But it is what it is. It is what it is. Excuse me. Yes. Why am I having hiccups? Beautiful course. Oh, oh my. Joan Garcia, what a goalkeeper. Very brilliant goalkeeper that Barcelona do have on their hands. And meanwhile, Atletico de Madrid were forced into another 1-all draw. Elche beat up against Real Oviedo. Excuse me. Real Madrid lead the Spanish La Liga 15 points out of the opening 5 games. Barcelona comes second, 13 out of 5. If they go ahead and win this one, Villarreal, Espanyol completed the top 4 with 10 points each. Elche, Betis, Real Betis have played 6 games. How is that possible? With Celta Vigo. But Atletico de Madrid are 12th on the La Liga table. I don't know, but Diego Simeone could be living on borrowed time. Yes, he's been a good manager for a good servant of Atletico de Madrid, but they need to find a way of moving on from him, because I do not think he still has any fresh ideas to bring to that team. I don't know if they are so afraid of moving on. They do not know what lies ahead, but they need to start considering moving on from him. Then Como beat up against Fiorentina by 2-1. I remember that game was 1-all by when I last checked on it. Let's have a look at the Italian Serie A table standings. Juventus leading the way with 10 points from 4 games. Napoli, I think those will be in action on Monday. 9 points from 2 games. AC Milan 9 points, Roma 9 points, Atlanta 8 points, Cremonese 8 points, Como have 7 points in 8th place, Cagliari 7 points, Lecce bottom, Pisa as well as Parma linger in the bottom 3. But yeah, meanwhile it's raining out there. But let's see out this game. Only 3 minutes have been added. So let's see out this game before I wish you guys a wonderful rest of the night. In as far as the Premier League is concerned, Liverpool are 5 points ahead of a second place Arsenal on 10 points, similar to a third place Tottenham Hotspur and AFC Bournemouth side, who were forced into a goalless draw this evening against Newcastle to complete the top 4. Manchester City are still 9th, but nothing to worry about. They have as many points as Manchester United. All have 7 points with Everton. So 9th, Everton 10th, Man United 11th, Leeds 12th with 7 points all. So, I mean, Manchester United are only 3 points behind Arsenal, who are in second place. So, it's not as bad as at Manchester United. And that's the beauty about football, particularly in league football. A team can be so bad, but then a string of couple of wins is enough to bring them back into the picture and you're wondering, how did they get here? Because yesterday, not just the other day, were singing all sorts of criticism of Manchester United, and now they are only 3 points from the top, from second place. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's all not doom and gloom, as far as things go. there. But yes, match the 6, Manchester United have Brentford, the early kickoff. Chelsea will be up against Brighton. Crystal Palace will host Liverpool. Leeds United. Now, Crystal Palace, the team that beat up against Liverpool on penalties, win the Community Shield. Leeds United up against Bournemouth. Man City will be at home against Burnley. Should be a winnable game for them. Nottingham Forest will be at home to Sunderland. Tottenham Hotspur will take on Wolverhampton Wanderers. Arsenal travel to Newcastle. I mean, doesn't come more difficult than that. I mean, they're going to be in big trouble, big trouble for Arsenal. And again, if they go to Newcastle with that conservative mind, they will get beat. Aston Villa will be up against Fulham. Fulham beat up against Brentford by 3-1 yesterday night, while Everton on Monday Night Football will be up against West Ham United. So midweek, we will have some Carabao Cup games coming our way in the third round, where some teams have already played. It has finished 3-0 for Barcelona against Getafe. So allow me wish you a wonderful rest of the night. Thank you, Pedri, and every single one of you that has managed to catch tonight's podcast. I'll see you guys next time. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.